Good morning, guys. Since we last spoke, quite a bit's happened, but what we've actually got to now, because it was very much in the waiting game, was to find out who was going to be selected to move forward to what was called the final and last stage. And we now know we've got a final four in terms of prospective owners of Chelsea Football Club. And we know it's been deleted or removed from the equation, the Saudi group. In fact, there was two Saudi investors, Nick Candy and the Korean investment situation, and the four London Chelsea season ticket holders, big hedge fund investment from London. In fact, many bids have gone to the wayside purely and simply through an elimination process of being able to do the deal as quickly and as speedily as possible, and those that don't fit and meet the criteria set out by Roman Abramovich and of course the Roman Group. In the last week, we're now able to now sell tickets, so the Champions League game against Real Madrid, that we're going to have a full house at Stamford Bridge, and indeed Wembley for the semi-final of the FA Cup against Crystal Palace. But incredibly, we're not able to sell home tickets for the Premier League games as of yet. But away fans are able to go, and of course season ticket holders as well. I've got no idea why that's the case. Indeed, I've got no idea also why it was possible for Roman Abramovich to release, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fantastic, £30 million worth of funds from Fordstam, which I thought was the company that owned Stamford Bridge, and would have been frozen as part and parcel of the sanctions laid down by the British government. And it's also interesting as well that Ukraine have obviously made a statement with regards to Abramovich and the American President Joe Biden asking for no sanctions to be put in place by America to Roman, on the basis that he is actually trying to broker peace between Ukraine and Russia. Information that we knew way back before the sanctions were even put in place by the British government. I tell you guys, a lot of this just don't sit right with me. Even if you look at the last four here, albeit that there are some really great bids still here, and some people that I think are going to do some great stuff for us at Chelsea. Two of them contain, connections to the Conservative Party in obviously in this country, and indeed one of the groups that I've got through is the Ricketts family, where the Chelsea supporters No to Ricketts went viral and made their feelings perfectly clear with regards to those emails that went out by the senior person of that family regarding Islam and just total disrespect to the Muslim community, which the Chelsea supporters and the Chelsea Supporters Trust made their feelings perfectly clear. People like Paul Cannaville, indeed the whole Chelsea community, but nevertheless it's still got through to the final stage, which just goes to prove that if you've got money, basically nothing really matters, you know. But anyway, let's talk about, obviously it's Sunday morning, and rather interesting extract here in one of the newspapers, and indeed Sky News.com, and I'll just read it out to you guys. Bidders told to commit £1 billion to the future of Chelsea as a four-way shootout looms. Also, guys, it was also interesting as both the Koreans and the Saudis have both said that even though they haven't won and they're disappointed, they'd still be prepared to come in at any point, i.e. with regards to helping with funding, or they'd be happy to be part of whatever consortium wins, which just goes to show you, I mean, there might be a massive angle there, especially with the fact that they could, sort of sell Chelsea like globally, like not just in Korea, but Saudi Arabia, right across the Middle East. It's certainly something worth thinking about. And what has come out of all of this is the fact that we have got a lot of billionaires that support Chelsea, and I don't think I think we've shown the world here just what an iconic, massive football club we are. But I'll read this out to you guys. Bidders told to commit $1 billion to the future of Chelsea as a four-way shootout looms. A blank cheque company set up by F1 owner Liberty Media was among the bidders for Chelsea Football Club, whose offers were rejected this week. Interesting. The remaining contenders to buy Chelsea FC have been told they must commit at least $1 billion to future investment in the club if they are to succeed in the battle to end Roman Abramovich's 2-decade tenure as owners of last season's Champions League winners. Sky News can exclusively reveal that the quartet of bidders who were this week approved by bankers to proceed to formal offers will have to give contractual guarantees that at least $1 billion of additional funding will be available for the Blues, Stamford Bridge Stadium, its playing squad and other areas of development. I would have thought it'd been a little bit more than that, but again, I suppose that's a good thing, really, isn't it? I mean, getting to the second stage now and they're saying, right, okay, this is what we want you to do. Have you got the guarantees in place? This is what you're going to commit to. It's pretty good, I have to say. The disclosure comes as Sky News has also learned that a so-called blank cheque vehicle set up by one of the world's most powerful media tycoons also tabled a proposal to merge with Chelsea this month. City sources said that Liberty Media Acquisition Corp, LMAC, a New York-listed special purpose acquisition company, or SPAC, SPAC, was among the parties which was eliminated from the auction, largely because of the complexity of finding a deal on a timetable which was truncated by Mr. Abramovich's sanctioning. Mr. Malone, who has placed huge bets on sports by engineering the takeovers of Formula One racing and the Atlanta Braves Major League Baseball team, is said to have lodged a credible offer for Chelsea. Credible. Had it been successful, it would have seen Chelsea join Manchester United as a US-listed company. It's rather interesting, guys, because I've actually got a feeling, massive feeling here, that it's quite possible where they could regenerate loads of money again, that Chelsea could go PLC like Manchester United. SPAC mergers typically take months to finalise and often involves a degree of uncertainty because of the need to raise additional financing from investors. LMAC's involvement in the auction, which has not previously been reported, further underlines the international frenzy of bidding for Chelsea, which erupted in the space of little more than a fortnight. The insistence that bidders earmark at least $1 billion for investment in the club is likely to go some way to reassuring supporters that its new owner will continue to back it with the kind of significant financial resource they had become accustomed to under the Russian-born businessman. All four of the remaining bidders have significant experience in sports stadium infrastructure, a key consideration given Chelsea's long-standing dilemma about the expansion of Stamford Bridge, which has a capacity barely half that of Manchester United's Old Trafford home. The quartet of contenders includes investors from all around the world, with a bias towards American billionaires who have already had the experience of owning elite sports franchises. Between them, the final bidders either control or own stakes in US teams, including the Boston Celtics, the Chicago Cubs, the LA Dodgers, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Sacramento Kings. Sir Martin Broughton, the former British Airways and Liverpool FC chairman, and Lord Coe, the former British Olympian turned sports administrator and businessman, are fronting a bid that has the financial firepower of Josh Harris and David Blitzers, as two wealthy American financiers. That consortium also includes Vivek Ranadiv, an Indian-born entrepreneur, and a syndicate of other investors from around the world whose identities are expected to be confirmed in the coming days. Another of the leading contenders is headed by Todd Boney, the LA Dodgers part owner. That includes Jonathan Goldstein, the London-based property developer, and Clearlake Capital, a US-based investment firm. Mr. Boney's bid is being advised by Goldman Sachs. That's quite incredible, that is. I mean, their assets are about 1.3, 1.44 trillion. A third group compromises the Ricketts family, which owns the Chicago Cubs, and the Citadel hedge fund billionaire Ken Griffin, with the US investment bank Lazard in talks to advise it. Tom Ricketts, the Cubs chairman, flew to London this week to address concerns raised by fans groups about Islamophobic remarks made by his father Joe a decade ago. People close to the bid have insisted that Joe Ricketts has no involvement in it, and have pointed to his family's successful ownership of the team, having won the World Series for the first time in a century and completed a $1 billion renovation of its home, Wrigley Field, one of the most historical sports arenas in the US. This is interesting, guys. The other remaining contender for Chelsea is a bid spearheaded by Stephen Pagluccia, an American private equity billionaire who owns the Boston Celtics and Atalanta in Italy's Serie A. The next deadline to be set by the Roman Group, the US merchant bank who's handling Chelsea's sale, is expected to be set just days before the Blues play Premier League side Crystal Palace, which is currently part owned by Mr. Harris and Blitzer in the semi-final of the FA Cup. Sky News has revealed the existence of 3 of the 4 remaining bids, as well as details of the other consortiums in recent weeks. Sources said that Rain would assess the 4 bids against a set of criteria, including the level of equity and debt funding, price future investment commitments, speed and certainty of execution, and the claims that each party has to being an appropriate steward of a prestigious sporting brand. Among the bidders who were eliminated from the process this week were offers funded by London-based property developer and lifelong Chelsea fan Nick Candy, the former US ambassador to the UK, Woody Johnson, Centricus, an asset manager, and Saudi Media Group, whose bid is said to have been largely debt finance. So all those people that wanted that Saudi angle, it would have been the worst thing possible for Chelsea, because they would have just plopped the debt onto the club in a similar way to what the Glazers did. So be careful what you wish for, guys. You have to read through it all and then work out what's best. In this process, it seems to me as if they're really going through this, like, taking every single step by step. Right, okay, have you got that in place? Okay, so you've done that. Okay, so we want the stadium coming up. This is going to cost X. Who have you got? What's your expertise? Where's your funding for that? Have you got that in place? What are you going to do about the team? They've been winning for 25 years, 28 trophies. What are you going to do for this? What are you going to do with that? What's your plans with it? See, this is not just, look, we've got a club for sale, highest bidder wins. Listen, the highest bidder don't win. The best package wins, with the best people in place, with the funding in place, and all the things that we want Chelsea to have going forwards on the next stage has got to all be in place too. Rain is expected to set a deadline for a second round of bids by mid-April, so it's going to take a bit of time, guys, after which it anticipates signing a formal deal and approaching the government for a special licence to approve the transaction by the end of the next month. Bidders and the bankers also dismissed suggestions that some parties were frustrated by the pace of the transaction's progress. By the standards of conventional takeover process, the Chelsea auction has moved at breakneck speed, with executives at other major investment banks suggesting that such a complex sale would typically have taken at least 6 months. 6 months. Mr. Abramovich's sanctioning by the UK government has added further complications to the transaction, as bidders have sought clarity on the legal implications of buying the club. Sources also pointed out that further bidders had continued to emerge even in the last week, requiring Rain to evaluate their seriousness. Some fan groups have questioned the absence of a wealthy British businessman from the process, although Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the EOS tycoon who is now based in Monaco, did express an interest before deciding not to lodge a formal offer. According to insiders, a number of the remaining bidders are expected to make further refinements to the composition of their bids in the next fortnight. So it's really quite complex, isn't it, and I think the fact that Abramovich has put some more money in, he's buying Chelsea some more time because he wants the right thing for us moving on. I mean, he's reportedly now looking at buying another club, a club in Turkey. And, I guess things move on, and good luck to the guy, but you cannot fault his commitment to us all, and he's obviously trying to make sure that the next move is right. It's not about money for him, it's about everything placing us in the right hands going forward, The auction of Chelsea has become the most hotly contested and potentially the richest sale of a leading sports franchise in history, with hundreds of parties expressing an initial interest in buying a share of the club or controlling it outright. The cluster of American sports billionaires circling Chelsea underlines the extent to which the English Premier League has become a magnet for finances from across the Atlantic, with Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester United all having been acquired by US-based businessmen. Yeah, but not the ones that we want, that's for sure. Prior to being sanctioned, Mr. Abramovich had said he intended to write off the £1.5 billion loan to the club and hand the net proceeds from the sale to the new charity that was set up to benefit the victims of the war in Ukraine. The Premier League has disqualified Mr. Abramovich from being a director of Chelsea, but has said the move would not affect players' abilities to train or fulfil the club's fixtures. Earlier this week, the government agreed to further amend the licence so that Chelsea can continue operating, with the club now able to resume selling tickets to away matches. The proceeds are to be retained by the Premier League and earmarked for the Ukrainian war victims charity. It's like they're all, I don't know, it's like they're all having their little piece at Chelsea in it right now, it's just, I don't know, I just feel like we're a kind of pawn in a big game of chess, Chelsea can now receive $30 million from the club's parent company to ease cash flow constraints caused by their current crisis. A rapid sale is seen as essential if Chelsea is to avert the uncertainty that would trigger the breakup of one of the top flight's most valuable playing squads. The current FIFA Club World Cup winners have been thrown into disarray by Russia's war on Ukraine, with Mr. Abramovich initially proposing to place the club in the care of its foundation and then formally putting it up for sale. This is all the information that we know now. Abramovich initially slapped a $3 billion price tag on the Stourbridge outfit, with the net process being donated to a charitable foundation to set up for the benefit of the victims of the war in Ukraine, as well as government consent in the form of a special licence. Chelsea's new owners will also require the approval of the Premier League under its fit and proper ownership test. So I imagine those four will just, that will fly through flying colours, When contacted, Rain dismissed the report in the Daily Telegraph suggesting it was in line to be paid a fee worth 1.5% of the transaction value, which would have been equivalent to £45 million if Chelsea had sold for £3 billion. So £45 million Rain make out of this whole process, or not too sad, is it, for making a decision. Bidders are said to have been informed that Rain's fee is substantially lower than that, and is partly contingent upon both the scale of the ensuing proceeds to charity and the level of guaranteed future investment in Chelsea. However, Rain declined to comment, well they would do, wouldn't they, on any other aspect of the bidding process, while spokespeople for the consortia also refused to comment. What a shock. And it's rather interesting also, isn't it? You see the Chancellor of Exchequer and his wife actually receiving, is it 13, 14 million pounds dividends off a Russian company as well, you know. It's all right with them, isn't it? You know, it's fucking such hypocrisy, guys. It really, really is. So there we go then, guys. I mean, it seems like we're going in the right direction. For me, I think the Boney Group, all that, the Boney consortium seems the right one. It really does. If you've seen the interviews with him, there's one on Bloomberg, I think. He talks about the English, the Premier League, and about football, and he doesn't sound like an American at all. You know, he's seriously got the angle, got the grasp on it all. Looks at it from the community aspect, but it's all about investment for him. And if you look at the Dodgers, they've won, I think it's 4 titles in the last 6 years. Really consistent, and they do splash the cash. But I think his angle really is the marketing, you know, he can send this out globally. And if you look at who's part of his team, massive PR operation there between the UK and the US. You've got Goldman Sachs in the background. Wow, you know, don't get any bigger than that. And he's got massive investment there. I mean, and he's a billionaire. His other co-partner is a billionaire, the Swiss guy in Switzerland. You know, it all stacks up. Listen, whatever happens, we'll come out of this all right. We'll still be a massively iconic club, and you know, we've still got a season to see out. And who's to say, you know what I mean? The next season we might. Everything's going to be all right anyway. Do you know what I mean? You know, what everybody's been dreaming of in their little dreams. You know what I mean, about us going to the wall, and it's completely backfired in a minute. Do you know what I mean? All these Arsenal fans jumping up. Ooh, look at us! You know, we're going towards the Champions League. Absolute zoons, they really are. Okay, guys. Well, it was good to touch base with you. It's been a while. As I say, you know, another week in the life of Chelsea Football Club. We just have to wait on to see who's going to get chosen. I don't think it's going to be the Ricketts. I think there's loads of protests and loads of issues down with that one. I really, really can. I think it will all come down to the 2 Tory MPs. Actually, I think it will all come down to Broughton and Co. and you know, and Boney, the Boney Group. I think the last one, I don't see it happening. Do you know what I mean? I think maybe those 2 will drop out and they'll be left with those 2 at the end. And they both stack up. They really do. There's lots of dough there, lots of experience, massive construction, and real estate. You know, sort of experience, massive funding. They both see the angle. It's all Chelsea orientated, you know, and some of those investors that would like to get involved, you know, whether it's Saudi media, you know, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? You know, for additional funding and stuff like that. Well, we've got those angles there. You know, what this has opened up is the fact that we're not short of a few bob, are we? Not in the Chelsea world, that's for sure. You know. 200 billionaires right at the start, 31. Just incredible. It's incredible, really. Do you know what I mean? What an iconic football club we are. And I think this has proved it beyond doubt, you know. But anyway, guys, I'll speak to you soon. And thanks for listening, and much love. All the best.